Hello again. This is Nassau National Cable Podcast. This is Carolis, your host. And today we're going to be talking about the cost of rewiring a house. As usual, we have Vita again with us. She's our resident expert. Hi, Vita. How are you today?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you. And as always, it's great to be back here.
Absolutely. It's been a while since we started talking, just you and me.
Literally.
Yeah, but so we're excited today to restart our regular podcast and start talking about very interesting topics so that our listeners and our audience and our customers can learn a little bit more about different things going on, right? So today, the topic being the cost of rewiring a house, I think it's very important to notate a couple of things. And just want to start by saying there's a couple of, points that you should consider when first thinking about rewiring a house. And those are what you need in order to be prepared for it and what are the measures that you need to consider once you're doing the rewiring, as well as some steps or actions that you need to take in order to be, ready. So the first of all, and I think that's something that Vida and I have talked over the podcast for quite some time, is the fact that you need to do your research. So the first thing that you always need to consider when you're immersing yourself in a new project, especially a project that involves the house that you live in, is doing research. Go to the people that actually know how to do it. Make sure that you're doing research with a licensed provider or a licensed contractor. Someone who will tell you things that apply not just to your house per se, but also locally. Remember, here in the United States, everything works different in every state. So every state or every city will have different codes that apply to your particular house, to your particular project. So make sure that you always do your research and get knowledge from the right people. Listen, Google is a great source of information. Now we have AI, ChatGPT, and all these other sources that can give you information as well, but it's not the same when you go to the expert, right? So make sure that you do your research properly and get the right information. Okay, that's one thing. The next thing is to prepare the house, right? So get the house ready. What do you need? What is your plan? What is it that you need to take out in order for this whole project to be done properly? Electricians that are going to be doing this project are going to need to cut through walls. They're going to need to lift floorboards. They're going to need to cut into the ceiling as well. And everything needs to be done in a safety matter. And everything needs to be done in a safety way that goes according to the code applicable to your city, your house, your state. So make sure that you always do your research and get knowledge from the right people. Listen, Google is a great source of information. Now we have AI, ChatGPT, and all these other sources that can give you information as well, but it's not the same when you go to the expert, right? So make sure that you do your research properly and get the right information. Okay, that's one thing. The next thing is to prepare the house, right? So get the house ready. What do you need? What is your plan? What is it that you need to take out in order for this whole project to be done properly? Electricians that are going to be doing this project are going to need to cut through walls. They're going to need to lift floorboards. They're going to need to cut into the ceiling as well. And everything needs to be done in a safety matter. And everything needs to be done in a safety way that goes according to the code applicable to your city, your house, your state. So make sure that you leave your house ready so that all this, structured, I don't want to say damage, but all these needs that are going to happen during the project are done properly. Okay, so The first one is do your research. The second one is prepare your house, plan ahead. And with planning ahead, what I think it's good to know is, since you already know what it's going to do, what is going to happen, what is going to be done to your house, just plan on things that you want to do. You want some extra lights or extra sockets that you can position in a certain way. So make sure that you have all these plans to be considered at the time of the rewiring, so that you don't have to later on break that wall again and put that cable or put that wire through that wall, or having to go through, the ceiling again and make more holes that are going to, in the end, just make your life more difficult and costly, right? Also, with this, I'm talking about planning on what kind of gadgets you plan on installing in your house. If you want to stay in this house forever, there's certain things that with technology advancements become maybe not a need, but a necessity to make it more comfortable, and that are going to make your life a lot easier, especially now that everything is done with Wi-Fi. So just consider those two things when you're planning. That way, all your plans are going to be, taken into consideration at the time of the rewiring. And just, it's never too much for me to remind you guys, it's needed for professionals to do this. You don't want to do something and then having to cover the consequences or live the consequences that could be fatal. So you want to make sure that you hire someone professional with a good reputation that you can actually, verify. So those are the couple of things that I wanted to talk about when it comes to rewiring a house. Those are things that are very important for you, and it will, help you have a better plan and have a better understanding of what's going to be done. So knowing those things already, what we want to talk about right now, what Vida is going to explain us a little bit, are other things that are more in depth towards rewiring a house and are more specific to the cost. So, Vida, let's start with factors that affect the cost of rewiring a house. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. But I would like to pre-state by saying that if you're looking for an average cost of rewiring a house, and it's somewhere between $5,000 and $20,000. But of course, it's just the average, and there are a lot of factors that involved into that. So most houses will be rewired for a price of between 5 and 20K, but there are a lot of different factors that pile up to kind of affect this price. And the first is, of course, logically size of your house. The larger is your house, the more expensive it is to rewire it, just because based on the price of the work, of the labor, and the price of materials that goes there. So if you have a small house of up to 1,500 square feet, the rewiring cost is usually between 2 to 6K. Whereas for a standard house, which is up to 3,000 square feet, it's between 6 and 12,000. And for larger houses, the cost can even reach 20,000 and more, and it starts about 12,000. So the first factor after the size of the house that you should consider is the age and condition of the wiring that you have in your house. This is especially true if you have a house built before 80s, which has old aluminum or even knob and tube wiring that has to be completely replaced. And this is a more challenging job and a more significant cost to replace all of the wires. So if you have those old types of wires made of aluminum or knob and tube, you can actually add up between 10 to 20% to the average cost. The same goes for instances when you have damaged wiring, or it often happens that after you have a quote and the job started, electrician starts working on this wiring and they discover some faulty wiring. So it's better to know what you have in your house and to clean it up before, and actually give your electrician a very full account of what's happening with the wiring. So you don't want to have surprises, because surprises are extra days of work and extra costs. So before like starting rewiring, you should just like add up all of the elements and make it clear to the professionals that will be working on your house what you have there. Another thing that is really important is local labor rates. In fact, like labor rates constitutes about 50 to 70% of all the pricing, and it can vary greatly by area. It can be anywhere from $40-50 per hour to $150. It depends really on where do you live, and you should just check for local rates whenever you plan for rewiring. Also, of course, materials affects the price. So if you go for standard cables like THHN or NMB and just the regular outlets, or you just don't even replace all of the outlets in your house, then it will be cheaper. But if you install a lot of GFCI or other types of specialized outlets, or you want to do some modern, well-designed outlets, or some premium grade circuit breakers, you can as well pay 10 to 25% more to the regular price. Now, another factor is accessibility. If your house structure make it difficult to access the wiring, it can actually increase labor time and cost of the labor. And if you have some troubles with your attic or basements, it's also add up to the price. So in case there are such issues, or you need to open walls for access, for example, it can also affect the price greatly. So it can be 20 to 30% more expensive. And finally, the cost is just like, it's the sum of all upgrades. So if you have a lot of upgrades to do each extra outlet or each extra internet cable, it can cost up to $100-200 for each. So if you just need to do a lot, then of course the project will be more expensive.
In general, it seems like this is a very costly project. That's why it's so important for you to do your research beforehand.
It doesn't have to be costly. I mean, not all houses will have a very costly upgrade, but it's really important just to create a plan and outline all of the elements that you want to replace. And this way you can just save yourself time and money if you are prepared.
Right, exactly. Being prepared for the future, because you never know what's going to happen, what's going to change, what you want to change later on. But I think the most important thing to consider in these projects are always safety. Electrical mistakes and electrical mishaps always happen when you don't do it properly. And this is one of those projects that it's better if you just do it correctly from the beginning. Yeah, it might be a little more costly at the beginning, but it's in the long term more beneficial for you and safer, right?
Safety is actually even the main reason to do the rewiring. Of course, there's a lot of different reasons, like to make your house score better on the market, but the primary reason for all of the rewiring is mostly safety. So of course you need to come from the place of safety if you want to upgrade your house for safety.
Exactly. There's definitely no cheap way to cover that. So you talked about all the factors that will increase or keep very good cost on rewiring a house, but can we have a breakdown by elements, being, what's going to be needed during the rewiring? And can you tell us a little bit about it in more detail?
Yeah, sure. So different elements, different prices. For example, of course, electrical panel is something that everyone replaces on full house rewiring project. So if you are just installing a brand new 100 amp panel in the house, then the cost will be between 800 to 1020 probably. If you're upgrading from 100 amp to 200 amp series, which is common for many small and mid-range houses, you will pay anywhere between 1,500 to 3,000. This includes not only the panel, but also all the mirrors, outlets, and wiring that go together with this panel. And if you upgrade to 400 amp service. It can cost starting from $2,000 to maybe 4 or 5, depending on whether you will need a secondary panel. Another common thing is opening walls. So opening walls cost anywhere between $4 to $8 per square foot. Running wires itself costs between $2 to $4 per square foot as well. Labor, like I said, is between 40 to 150 per hour. And also another thing that to consider is that a rewiring project need permit, and permit depends on your local authorities, and it can be very different prices depending on whether you are in a rural area or basically just can be specific price in your county. So you need to research it before, for example, and check for the prices locally. For example, in New York, the DOB permit is $650. So you should get the permit beforehand and research what kind of permit is for your area.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Do your research. I don't think I'm going to get tired and keep reminding you guys, research. It's very important for you to do it properly. All right. So Vida, we already kind of got elements that are going to be involved in rewiring a house, but what does a full house rewire include?
Well, it can be different for your different needs, but usually it's replacement of all fixed wiring, upgrading and replacing the fuse box, installation of new electrical outlets, depending on the number that you need, replacing all the lighting circuit wiring. It can include new light fittings and switches as well. Also, it often includes installation of data points and TV aerial points. If there's fiber optic internet available in your area, it can also include that. And it also includes working on outbuilding or external electrical points. But it, of course, can account for more different stuff. For example, if you want to invest in smart homes, there will be a whole smart house infrastructure that you have to build in your house. But the things that I mentioned right now, it covers the most basic things that are done with every full kind of rewiring.
That's good to know. Does the age of the house matter? With that question, I mean, is there a certain age or is there a certain time in which a house needs to be rewired?
Yeah, so as a rule, you should look into rewiring for houses that started 30 years, that are 30 years old. So if your house is from the 90s, maybe it's time to reevaluate whether you need to rewire it. But as the older it gets, the more essential it is to rewire it. So if your house is 40 years old, you are more likely to need rewiring. And if your house is 50 years old, then there is even more urgent need for rewiring. But basically, it's not just the age, even though you absolutely have to check it if it's older than 30 years and especially if it's older than 50 years. But there are actually some signs when the rewiring is urgent. For example, your circuit breakers start to regularly trip and you notice this, or your lights flicker or dim, or your switches are discolored and overheated, or you hear some buzzing sound, or you can even experience a slight electric shock when touching the switches, or if you notice that your light bulbs are starting to burn out. Or if you live in an old house and you have aluminum wiring, or you have no grounded outlets, or you don't have enough outlets and you use extension cords all the time. So in this case, if any of these factors apply, it's definitely time to rewire your house, because all of these things are not safe for you and your house. And it also makes the experience of comfort in your home more challenging. If you don't have enough outlets for all of your appliances, and it's not only not safe, but also uncomfortable. So if any of those factors add up, then it's time to rewire your house.
That's good to know. Well, guys, there you have it. Age is very important in the sense of every 30 years, kind of technology and codes change, and it's better to keep safety levels when it comes to electrical in the house. So I want to I want us to talk about government incentives, Vita. Is there any government incentive in the United States that would make rewiring of a full house more affordable?
Yeah, one of the questions that people often ask online or ask experts is whether it's possible to rewire a house for free. But it's actually challenging to rewire a house entirely for free, and it's not completely possible. But there are actually government programs that can help you to afford some home improvements and repairs, including full rewiring. For example, you can look into HUD home improvement loan programs. This is a programs by U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And these are loans that can assist with home repairs and modifications. For example, this includes property improvement loans and rehabilitation mortgage insurance programs. And these programs are widely available. However, there are some specifics to certain states or counties. So you should just hit the government website and look how it exactly applies in your area. Also, there are government programs that are available to help improve your home's energy efficiency. And there is some overlap between energy efficiency and electrical upgrades. So if you are not sure what to look for, you can start to look into programs based on this angle. Also, there are home energy rebates based on the Inflation Reduction Act. So this includes home efficiency rebates and home electrification and appliance rebates. And these rebates help support households in making energy-sufficient home improvements. And they cover some costs for electrical upgrades, but they depend on different factors like your income level, your age, type of the property, and location. So with each of those programs, you should kind of check to see if you're eligible and if they are applied to you. And besides government programs, there could be, of course, in the United States, everything varies state by state. So states and local governments also sometimes offer some housing rehabilitation programs. And if you're not sure whether government programs work for you, you might also look into local programs. Sometimes there could be even more beneficial for houses located in your area. So you should also look into that. And well, mostly that's it, but there are also some insurance benefits depending on your type of insurance that are available if you want to rewire your house. So, of course, it's not a government program, but some insurance companies may offer you lower premiums for houses that have updated electrical system because you kind of eliminate the risk from your house. And if government programs don't work for you or you want some additional benefits, you can also look into insurance benefits.
Yeah, so we have talked about, technologies and renewable sources of energy as well. Solar panels, wind panels, or windmills that are available right now in other podcasts. So you can very well go ahead and listen to those podcasts, which Vita has explained a lot about the different programs that are available for you. Like she said, it's always good to do your research locally. Everything changes by state, by city, but in general, it applies to all of the United States. So now, like I always say, and maybe I'm repeating myself too much today, but do your research. Make sure that you are taking the right approach to this project that applies for you in particular. Remember, every case is completely different. Every house is completely different. And things that apply to your neighbor won't be applicable to you. It always changes. So just do your research based on your situation. Okay. So we talked about government incentives, and you mentioned that there are ways that we can save costs on rewiring a house. It might not be free. It's hard to get something done for free nowadays, these times, but there are certain ways that you can save costs. Vita, do you mind explaining us a little bit about these ways? What are those and how we can get them done safely?
Well, it's actually nothing special. It's just, again, based on this premise of doing your research. For example, don't just rely on the first quote from the first electrician you get. If you want to save costs, just search for different specialists and get multiple quotes before starting on a project, because all of them, even if it's in one city or in one area, they might have different rates. So it's great to compare those rates before starting on a project and choosing what's best for you. Also, if you don't have any money at all, like something is not safe, but you don't have money for a whole electrical project of rewiring up to you at Apple cost, you can actually just always do partial rewiring in the critical areas. For example, just do it in the areas where, of course, it's always better to invest into a whole rewiring project, but if it's not for you, so you can just do partial rewiring of the house just in the critical areas where some issues occur, or just in one room. So it can be a compromise for you. Also, great thing is to choose budget-friendly cables. So just like regular house cables like THHN, THWN, or NMB. So just don't put anything fancy. Those cables definitely do their job, and they are designed for home wiring. So you can just buy regular copper house wiring and also buy those cables in bulk. If you buy in bulk, it will be cheaper. For example, at NNC, we have different prices for 250 feet, 500 feet, and 1,000 feet, and it will be cheaper for you than to buy just smaller amount of cables. Also, just not just with cables, but as a general rule, if you want to save money, you should just go for standard materials that are used in these types of project, and don't invest in anything high end or anything premium. For example, sometimes people do this for the sake if they want to change the interior, and if you just don't have the money for that, you will be just as good with standard materials. Also, as there are different projects, sometimes you actually can keep the same layout that you had before and don't change it if it's still functional. Of course, there are instances where you need to change layout, but if you don't and you want to save money, then just do. And like we mentioned before, also look for those rebates, incentives, all of the stuff that can even make the cost of rewiring more cheaper.
Okay, that's good to know. Listen, it's not about saving on getting cheap material. It's about being smart in making this project a reality. Take Vita's points in consideration. You don't have to do it all at once. Do it little by little over time, whatever it is that you need it the most, where you have the heaviest usage of electricity in the house. Always make sure that you keep safety in your mind when you're doing a kind of project. And since Vita just said buying in bulk, it's also a way in which you can save costs. Let's talk about the particular cables that are going to be needed or that are useful for this rewiring of a house. And what do we have on our website at Nassau National Cable available for absolutely everybody to perform this project safely?
Yeah, so the first cable that everyone uses in house rewiring is THHN, which is a very affordable and versatile building wire. You use it in conduit for both indoor and outdoor application. It's cheap and it can be used for many things, and it's versatile, and you use it both inside and outside. So it's a great cable for rewiring a house. And at our website, we have slightly below market prices for this type of cable. Also, there's NMB, or you might know it under the brand name Romex, which is a cable of choice for indoor dryer location for all type of in-wall installations. And finally, for outside and direct burial applications, you have UFB. So this is your choice of cable for outdoor project. And I would say, aside from those three cables, you don't actually need anything else except for maybe some internet cables. But for the house wiring itself, so those three cover all the things you need, and you don't need anything else or to invest into anything fancy. Those three cables will definitely do their job for your wiring project.
Right. So you have it for all type of budgets, right? The most expensive one to the least expensive budget that you
It's,
have?
it's not just like that. It's for all types of budget, but it's just regular your regular copper building wire, copper electrical cables that just do their job, and you don't need in most projects you don't need anything above that. So it will work both for cheap projects and for some of the more expensive projects, just because these cables work well with home wiring, and in most cases don't need anything else.
Okay. Is there any kind of recommendation as to like how to choose them, or they can just use them depending on the usage?
No, it's just depending on your usage. Like I said, Electrician is just both for inside and outside in conduit. An M cable basically just goes in. It's for indoor use and it goes inside the wall. And UFB is for outside and for direct burial applications, and that's basically it.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know. Guys, there you have it. I hope this information actually helps you with this project of yours. It is very important, like I said. Do your research beforehand, plan ahead, make sure that you're considering absolutely everything that you want to have your house